Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, and over the next hour, you know we're going to do it like we always do. We're going to talk a lot of local sports with you, especially, again, the professional teams, and well, we got a great panel. Two guys that cover both professional teams here in New Orleans, both guys from the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. Larry Holder, he covers the New Orleans Saints for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, and Nakia Hogan covers the Pelicans for the NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And Nakia, a little bit, he's kind of also covered the Saints as well, especially in the preseason before he moved to the Pelican beat. And guys, welcome. Thanks again for being with us. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I know it's football season, basketball season. It's kind of like we're related because they're all the same place. We cross paths going in the media room. Oh, it's just a funny dynamic out there.
That's got to be kind of weird, though, huh? I mean, again, both teams obviously domiciled on the same in the same address, and you guys are obviously seeing each other. I'm sure the players are kind of intermingling as well.
Yeah, I think that is. It's a cool thing. I know talking to some of the players, like. Say Anthony Davis gets the opportunity to run across a Drew Brees and they can eat lunch together, and then I get to see my old buddy right here, Larry Holder, once in a while. So it's a cool dynamic.
And I'm wondering if Jimmy Graham's ever crossing paths with Anthony Davis, thinking he can dunk on him, and I'm sure Anthony Davis just probably points and laughs at him, says, "Stick to football."
Yeah, stick to football. Yeah, no doubt. Wait, look, he wasn't that great of a basketball player.
Why he's dunking on goalposts
exactly.
and not in the NBA.
No doubt. Guys, anything new at NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, that you'd like to tell the folks a little bit about before we get started?
Well, you know, I know it seems like every time we try to do all these new things, you know, we have daily shows. I know you got daily shows on the website during the season. I know you guys do the Pelican shows on there. It's like we try to hit every possible avenue we can possibly do at NOLA.com and in Times-Picayune. So I know, you know, it seems like there's no off season. So Nakia and I just working our respective beats, just doing it all off season, you name it, it's everywhere.
Well, the website has really emerged, hasn't it? I mean, again, from the opportunity to do video to obviously, again, the up to the minute information that you're going to get, whether it's football or basketball or really every sport.
Yeah, that's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to be 24-hour news cycle and getting stuff out up to the minute, whether it's, you know, breaking news at midnight. We're trying to get that out, and we want to constantly update the site throughout the day, and I think we've been doing a good job. We're trying to pretty much dominate the market as much as we can.
Well, no doubt it's where a lot of us go to get our news, and a lot of us, I mean, again, by the time it hits Twitter, it's pretty much on the website almost instantaneously. Right. So great job with NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Guys, let's start off with the Saints, and lots been happening obviously over the last week or so. It was a little bit of a lull, but they've been rolling. Let's start off with Champ Bailey. Larry, we'll take you first. Signs a cap-friendly deal, 2 years, about $6.5 million, pretty much an incentive-laden deal. Y'all had a chance to talk to Sean Payton yesterday about Champ Bailey. What can you tell us about the deal? What can you tell us about Champ Bailey? What can you tell us about Sean Payton's comments?
Well, every deal is cap-friendly. Let's just put it out there, because we know how tight they are against the cap, and they still have to worry about how do they get Jimmy Graham under contract, because that's the lingering cloud that's over them right now. Champ Bailey, look, he took a visit, and it was his only visit. And really one of the reasons why he decided New Orleans is the place, obviously a contender for the Super Bowl, wants one last shot. Sean Payton saying yesterday up at LSU Pro Day when we were able to talk to him that it's the one thing on the checklist that Champ doesn't have. He's a surefire Hall of Famer, 12-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All-Pro. The question is, in a lot of people's minds, leaving Denver, can he still play? Is there enough gas left in the tank? 15 years. Was hurt last year. It's really the only year he's really been hurt. And the only reason why he got the starting job back late in the season is because the guy who was in front of him, Chris Harris, tore his ACL. So he had to play the last two, the championship game and then the Super Bowl. And I think they are not. It's not just lip service. They're coming in. They want him to be that starting cornerback. They wouldn't have given him guaranteed money as part of that deal to do so. And you knew that Corey White, Patrick Robinson, they are not sold on them. So they wanted to bring in a guy, a veteran guy. They're in a win-now mode. They're always in a win-now mode. We were talking off camera, just the way they use the cap. They're in a win-now mode.
Yes.
And so that's they're hoping he can come in and win that starting job.
Nikia, you covered this team in the preseason. Were you surprised, as I was, when first of all they went after Champ Bailey, when Champ Bailey visits and then he gets away? Normally you don't, when a player leaves, you don't sign him, and then lo and behold, he ends up signing with the Saints.
Yeah, I think it was the bigger shock was, when that name first came across, across the different airways and different news sites that Champ Bailey was in for a visit, and I think they caught a lot of people by surprise. But this Saints team, Mickey Loomis and that staff, they've shown throughout the years that they're not afraid to go after the big guy, the big fish, whenever they can. And I think this was an opportunity to get a guy who has plenty of skins on the wall, and he can still maybe. We don't know. I think the jury's still out on how much he has left. But they went after need, and after the release of Jabari Greer, it was definitely a need at cornerback to play alongside of Keenan Lewis, who had a tremendous, first season in the Saints uniform.
Well, he sure did. He sure did. At the very least, you get some leadership. You lost a lot of leadership, obviously, with Vilma, Harper, Jenkins, Smith, all gone. Again, at the very least, you can always use him in the sub packages, and I'm sure Ryan has a thought process on how he's going to go with that as well.
Well, if you ask Champ Bailey, he wants no part of being a safety,
None.
and I don't think they're going to do that. And they want him to become that number 2 corner. They want him to be opposite Keenan Lewis, and you just brought it up. It's funny because they make the splash signing earlier this offseason, Jarris Byrd. Last offseason, they wanted to make a splash and went after Paul Kruger, didn't get it. They settled for Keenan Lewis, and probably was one of the best signings in the whole season. I mean, he was a shutdown corner.
Yes.
So you want that other side, and they feel like Champ can maybe do that. Now Peyton is pretty adamant. He feels like he can come in and can do it. And one of the things he mentioned, and that kind of stuck out to me, he mentioned leadership, he mentioned instincts, but the one word, the buzzword he said was skill set. They feel like he still has a skill set to come in and be an every down guy. At least they hope they can. They can't, until they see him on the field, but they project that he can be that guy. And so, look, he brings a lot to the table. And some of those guys you mentioned, I think some of those leadership roles, they were starting to shift. I mean, Curtis Lofton is probably more of a leader. Jenkins, leadership-wise, is more of a guy that's a loss, but you bring in a Bird, and some of these other guys. And it's kind of already shifting that way anyway, but to have a voice and to have someone who's hungry, they feel like Champ is extremely hungry. He's going to come in, work his tail off. I'm curious to see because if he is anywhere near a Pro Bowl caliber, he's better than Corey White, and he's better than Patrick Robinson.
Right. I think automatically when when he signed with this team, he became the second best cornerback on this team. I
agree.
I mean, immediately. And if he's 80% of what he was 2 years ago, and again, if you listen to what Peyton said yesterday, he wants to throw last year out because of the foot injury. But if he's 80% of what he was last year, you got to agree, Nikia, he's going to be able to contribute to this team.
Yeah, I believe so. My biggest question is how much of a step has he lost? Cornerbacks, you have to be able to run in this league, and even in zone, you still have to be, you need to be able to run. And we didn't get a great sample size from Champ Bailey last year, but at the end of the day, I'll almost side on the Saints side when it comes to their personnel department with Ryan Pace and all those guys over there. They seem to know how to find these guys, and Champ Bailey, you don't hear Sean Payton talk about a free agent signing the way he did with Champ Bailey, not unless it's a Drew Brees type of signing.
Yes, right.
And the way he raved about this guy that Sean Payton's is a pretty good football mind. So I think the way he raved about this guy, it leads me to believe that there is something left in the tank. My only question is, can he still run? And if he can, the rest will take care of itself.
And also, I mentioned it earlier, but the fact, and I'm going to bring up his name, and not because of why he's in the news now, but they caught lightning in a bottle with Darren Sharper, but it was a 1-year deal, yes. A flyer. This is a 2-year deal for Champ Bailey with guaranteed money. Money talks, and by giving him some guaranteed money means they want him on this team. They feel like he can come in. So, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and we'll see if it translates on the field.
Well, Nakia, I remember you in the preseason when you were covering this team, very, very high on Keenan Lewis. And, I mean, again, he looks like if he's got any skill set left, if he's, as I mentioned, 80% of what he was, he's a nice compliment to what you have on the opposite side with Keenan Lewis.
Yeah, and again, I just go back to can he run? Because once you start to get up there in age, you see that speed go away overnight. And Champ Bailey was NFL cornerback. Before we had Darrelle Reeves and Sherman out in Seattle, we thought about Champ Bailey. That's Mr. NFL cornerback. So I think if you can get anything, like you said, 80%, I take 75% of it. And I think the Saints are going to be pretty good because you look at that secondary, the way you saw Kenny Vaccaro come on, then you got Jairus Byrd, who some people say is the best free safety in football, yes, or at least in the top 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. And, Raphael Bush came on pretty strong last year. That's a pretty good secondary. You don't need that number 2 cornerback necessarily to be a world beater, but a guy that's as savvy, and if Sean Payton's right, the skill set that he brings, I think the Saints will have one of the better if not one of the best secondaries in the NFL.
Would you agree with that, Larry? I mean, when you look at the bodies they have back there now, and you look at it maybe just a few years ago to compare it to that, I would say that, at least on paper, they sure do look like one of the better secondaries in the NFL.
As soon as they got Jairus Byrd, I wrote a column saying it's their own Legion of Boom. And it's that signing alone helped because Keenan Lewis is basically your Sherman without all the talking. Look, he's an understated guy, but he's a shutdown guy. He takes away that side of the field. Kenny Vaccaro, Nakia was right. I mean, he definitely came on. The injury is unfortunate. He'll be back and he'll be fine. Jairus alone brought that. But then you bring back a guy like Raphael Bush, who Atlanta wanted him to go start. Mm-hmm. And the Saints, at least they said that their strategy the whole time was to bring him back. They got him back. They'll play that 3-safety mix, and they'll be upgraded at safety with Jairus Byrd back there. And then that other cornerback spot was the question. If Champ Bailey can do anything, and Nakia is 100% right about if he has legs, that's the big concern. Yeah. But if he can play at all, that secondary, already number 4 against the pass last year, can be even better. And you got to account for those pass rushers and more experienced. Cam Jordan and Junior Gillette, yes, they're coming in their second year together as that duo. Look out. I mean, this defense could be even better than last year's.
504-866-3200. This is a live show here on WLAE-TV each and every Thursday at 6 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Friday nights at 10 p.m. on WLAE-TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. You mentioned Raphael Bush, and I'll take you first, Nakia. $1.4 million tender, a little bit light on the tender. I was a little surprised because normally you want to tender a guy to the point where you get some type of compensation to scare off any possible teams that are coming in. The Falcons signed him to a 2-year, $4.5 million offer sheet. I really thought when Champ Bailey was signed, that was it for Raphael Bush. He was gone. They surprised me by again bringing him back in, but I think it's a pleasant surprise because I think he's an up-and-coming player.
Yeah, and I like Raphael Bush. I remember thinking back to last offseason when it was a lot of the fan base, they were pretty high on Issa Abdul-Quddus.
Yes.
And I was one of the people, because I had heard it from inside the organization, what they thought of Raphael Bush. They thought a lot of him even back then. So, to bring him back, it wasn't that much of a surprise. I knew unless the Falcons made a deal, that would have just pretty much been high in that first year. I mean, his cap value, his cap, number would have been, in the $3 or $4 million. Then I think that would have been too much for the Saints to handle. But I when it comes to those numbers, I know Mickey Loomis and Kai Hartley and those guys over there in the Saints organization, they do a really good job with finagling those numbers and getting them to kind of, fall in that range where they want them. So that they re-signed him was a little surprised, but I wasn't totally shocked by it because I knew if they really wanted this guy and they thought as highly of him as they did a year ago, then they'd find a way to bring him back.
Larry, were you surprised? I mean, I've said it on the radio show. I mean, I really thought that once, again, they signed Marcus Ball. We'll talk about him in a couple minutes. That they signed Champ Bailey. I'm saying, well, unfortunately, you're letting a really good player go to your division rival. Were you surprised by it?
I was a little surprised simply because of the numbers. I wasn't surprised because, as Nakia said, look, they're high on Raphael Bush. There's no doubt. And you also got to look at it this way. The Saints probably played it about as smart as they could have. It's not like the next highest tender, the money was that much more. It would have been like $2.1 million and the draft compensation. So what did they do? They gave him the lowest tender, and let's put this out there, he's the only one of the restricted free agents they even offered a tender
That's right.
to. They let Jed Collins walk. They let Tom Johnson walk. They let Joe Morgan not get a contract. They signed him at a cheaper deal, and that's, again, the smart move. But you can't blame them for trying to get him for cheaper, for $1.4 million. Now they're going to have to pay a little bit more, not all that much, but a little bit more. But I think it goes to show you how much they really like that 3 safety look, because even last year when Roman Harper got hurt, they did not switch their pattern. They put Raphael Bush in week 3 when Harper was hurt and he was basically downgraded, and that was kind of the end for him. He played in 75% of the snaps in week 3 in that 3 safety formation and was in there basically the rest of the season. So they liked him, and so they played as smart as they could. And so they matched, and it wouldn't have changed much if they would have tendered in the higher offer, and yet they had to pay him that much anyway, but they could have got him for cheaper maybe. So
Right.
I think rolling the dice here worked for them, and they got their guy eventually.
Sounds like what you're saying is they had intentions to be able to match that all along, depending on what the structure of the contract would have been.
Well, that's what they said, and the fact that they did tender him tells me they wanted him back.
Yes.
They were willing to work with whatever was to come, because it's a rarity that restricted free agents now get signed an offer sheet. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the last ones to do it before this Raphael Bush one was a Mike Bell 3 or 4 years ago. No compensation, and the Saints let him walk.
Right.
They didn't want to let Raphael Bush walk, though.
Marcus Paul, have you had a chance to kind of look at? I've looked on YouTube. I've looked at some of the highlights. Hard to be able to see how he's going to translate from the CFL to the NFL. Obviously, it looks like he's the ultimate tweener there. A guy that played a little bit of linebacker in college, came in and played some safety. I was up at in the CFL. What do you think he's going to bring to the table? Do you think he's a guy that makes this roster?
That is a question. I mean, the thing to me is that they have some of these under-the-radar signings. You don't hear about him. The fact that the Saints touted him and put it out there, 3-year deal for this guy no one's really ever heard of.
Yes.
They probably feel like he can come in and make the team. The Saints typically carry at least 4 safeties. A lot of times they carry 5. So right now they only have 4 safeties signed on the roster. They may draft one. They'll bring in some guys undrafted route. But the fact that they touted him, to me, signifies they think he can come in and play. Now, how does he end up in the CFL? He's had some troubles in college. Basically, got booted out of Florida State.
Yes.
Then goes to Pearl River Community College up the road in Poplarville. Then goes to Memphis and plays well in Memphis. And then when he's senior year, he's suspended, and basically that ends his senior year. No shot at NFL, so he has to go to CFL. So it's a flyer. I mean, they want to see what they have with him. But the fact that they touted him really tells me they think he can come in and play. And he asked for his release from the CFL,
yes.
From Toronto, because he wanted to make it to the NFL. So, look, he had some intel that he knew teams were going to try to get him. And the Saints, figuring they might have a need at safety, they don't know what's going to happen to Raphael Bush at the time, they go out and get him. So I'll be curious to see how he plays.
Maybe a guy that might take Harper's place, more of the skill set of a Roman Harper.
He's kind of like that.
Yeah.
I would say that, yeah. He's a different bird than, say, Jairus Byrd, different than Raphael Bush, different than Vaccaro. He probably isn't as versatile, at least to me. He could prove me wrong, but from what I feel like he might be more of a Harper type of guy. You throw him in there, special teams. There's going to be a lot of buzz around this guy. But I'm curious to see how he pans out. But like I said, the fact that they touted him, they probably feel like he can come in and make this 53-man roster.
Before we go to the phone lines, anything you can add to that, Nikia?
I don't watch a whole lot of CFL.
CFL.
Well, I wouldn't know either. I had to do the research.
I went on the YouTube.
On Twitter, who is this guy? Half the day I'm calling him Marcus Bell, and I said, I'm sorry. At least I'm consistent calling him Bell. I don't know who he is. So trust me, we're all going to learn together who this guy is.
We're not watching the TSN. Is that what they were on or something like that?
Something
like that, no doubt. 504-866-3200. Let's head to the phone lines. Ricky is in Kenner. Ricky, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for calling.
How you doing, sir?
Doing fine, Ricky.
I'll ask you a question. For New Orleans Saints, where are they going to be picking? They got a 6th-round draft pick. Where are they going to be picking in the NFL draft this year?
Larry, 27th in the first round?
That is you see, I've done a few mock drafts.
Right.
I've gone defense for the most part, and basically pass rushers. And I've been saying that because I feel like that's the best guy on the board at the time. I feel like there's a bigger need at wide receiver. We've seen the Saints interested in a lot of wide receivers already. Last night they had dinner with Odell Beckham Jr. after LSU's Pro Day. They've already had Marcus Lee in here from USC. He's another first-round guy. And they're looking at some other guys too. So if a wide receiver, say like a Beckham is there, I think they go take him. Right. He's versatile. He's explosive. They need a return man. Yes. They don't have one anymore. We're trying to figure out who it's going to be. So I think wide receiver, if the right guy is there, they would do that. Cornerback, I still think if the right guy is there, like say if a Kyle Fuller is still there from Virginia Tech, I think the Saints would be smart to draft him. But there's probably only 3 guys that'll be in that top portion. Justin Gilbert, Denard from Michigan State, and then maybe Kyle Fuller. And I feel like those would be the only 3 the Saints would want to take at that spot. So I keep saying pass rusher, but it's up in the air. I could see them maybe going outside linebacker, Ryan Shazer from Ohio State, someone more of a pure outside linebacker, not as much of a DN, like even though they call Gillette an outside linebacker, it's nonsense. Sure. It's a DN. But they could easily go best player available. I mean, when you're at 27, that's the route you have to go.
Nikia, in the past, as you've covered this team, they have looked at it as best player available. Right. When they've reached for a need is when they've kind of run into trouble. It wouldn't surprise me if ultimately the players that they're maybe targeting that are not there, if they trade back, what do you think happens?
Well, I think you're right. They go best player available. We've seen that, throughout the Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis era here. And I just think back to last year. For a while, Kenny Vaccaro really wasn't on a lot of people's radar. Right. He came on late, but early on, we heard all kind of other names. We heard the Jarvis Joneses and all that. But the Saints had Kenny Vaccaro rated high, and when the draft day came and he was still on the board, they jumped at it. So I think it'll be another one of those cases where the Saints will slot their guys how they think they should go. And if I don't know how high Odell Beckham or any other receiver, if I was the GM making the call, I think this team could definitely use another wide receiver, and that's probably where I would go, especially given the talent that they have in this draft. So I wouldn't trade unless there's just some deal that I needed,
right.
that it was a no-brainer not to take. I'm in favor of taking a wide receiver there, and if especially if a guy can double as a receiver and a returner, because like Larry said, there's no kick or punt returner right now. You can use Travaris Cadet, but he hadn't shown that he's really ready to own that role.
He's going to fight to make this roster. Right. I mean, I think it's up in the air.
I agree with that as well.
Beckham would be the guy. I mean, people, not just because of LSU, not just because he's from Newman. He's probably the best dual guy.
He's the best fit for what they need.
But I don't know if he.
I just don't think he has done so well in the combines. You look at his skill set. You look at what he brings to the table. I mean, he's a guy that originally a lot of people thought he would go, 27 to 32. Now people are saying 20, maybe to 15. And
I'm sold on him going to the Jets at 18 or Kansas City at 23.
Right.
I'm sold because those are the 2 spots I think they would need receiver. And I'm kind of going back and forth. It's either Brandon Cooks, Odell Beckham, or Odell Beckham, Brandon Cooks, and I think the Saints would be happy with both of those guys, and I don't think they're going to be there. Now, Marcus Lee, I'm curious to see.
Yeah.
Look, he's a guy who had great numbers with Matt Barkley. Right. Had an injury, had a different quarterback, not as good of a number. So the Saints, they're obviously intrigued by him, and when he's with a good quarterback, the guy can play. Right. He's a great receiver. But there's still a question mark, but I wouldn't be surprised if they looked really hard at him if he's there. And here's the thing, he might not even be there. So it's kind of a crapshoot right now.
Yeah, before this season, you would have thought Lee would have been a top 10 pick easily. This guy was unbelievable at Southern Cal. He was catching everything, returning kicks, so he was great.
Would you guys agree then, even with the moves they've made, saying best player available, wide receiver, cornerback, offensive line, and Larry, you've also touched maybe on a guy that's athletic that can go sideline to sideline at that outside linebacker position. Are those the kind of needs for this team still going into this draft?
I'd say outside linebacker is a need. It's funny because you gotta kind of look at, all right, they say they're a 3-4, and yet they play a 4-2-5, and yet so you don't know what you're looking for. So I guess they're looking for a versatile guy there. But you look at, as far as a pure outside linebacker, look, they've got 2 guys who are hurt and are on 1-year contracts, essentially, Victor Butler and Paris Harrison. So that is a need to me. I also look, offensive line-wise, you look at center just because you don't know what's there. They might look at a mid-round guy. I know Brian Stork from Florida State was in town. And so he's kind of a mid-round guy, and funny, the comparisons are to Brian Della Puente, CBSSports.com. That's who they compare him to, so it's funny that they do that. But, wide receiver, I would say yes. I'd still say corner. And but to me, also, I would look at maybe guard. And that's people might say, oh, well, they got 2 starters. Well, they're huge cap numbers.
Yes.
You might need to make a move. And actually, right now, Tim Lolito was your backup at both guard spots, and he might be the starter. So you probably need to look for some depth and some future there. So I wouldn't even also discount defensive tackle. You could always use somebody late in the draft. Obviously, Broderick Bunkley, he's still there. People thought he might have gotten cut, but he just took a pay cut. And yet, you can't never have enough pass rushers. That's why I keep going pass rushers in my mock draft. So, there's a lot of places, not necessarily like, oh my gosh, they need this guy, except maybe at receiver. I think they need an explosive guy receiver.
Right, I would agree. The receiver probably is the biggest need. It's the one thing that they have not the rest of the offseason. But Nakia, Sweeney's receiving some other positions you think that they could utilize, they could use to be able to bring in during this draft?
Well, I started, again, a receiver, but I'll overlook receiver. I'll bypass that. I agree with Larry that outside linebacker, you need, Victor Butler was supposedly their guy to play that strong side position last year. Was hurt very early in minicamp or OTAs, one of the two. I was there the day he went down. But
it was the last OTA.
Right.
And they called it, they bumped knees, and next day they break the story. Oh, he's done for the year, ACL,
Right.
Whoops.
So I think they could definitely use another dynamic pass rusher guy, even if he's in the beginning, it's just a situational guy who can come in and give them some other pass rush with a Cam Jordan and a Junior Gillette. Somebody else who can get to the quarterback and make those quarterbacks think back there and have to move around and not be able to get rid of the ball. I don't care how good your secondary is, you're going to need a pass rush. So if you can't find a receiver in that first round, I think definitely somebody who can rush the passer. And then also you're going to have to address the offensive line too. You have a 3rd round pick in Armstead at tackle, and you have an aging right tackle in Zach Strief, and 2 guards that make a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And no center at all.
Right.
So I think you can't go wrong with any of those 3 positions: receiver, pass rusher, and offensive line.
Back to the phone lines we go. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Eric Asher with you again till 7 o'clock tonight. Let's go to Lenny in Picayune. Lenny, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Lenny, you with us?
Yes.
Hey, Lenny, how are you tonight? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Your question?
It's we have a Drew Brees, which is a Pro Bowl, Super Bowl quarterback. But what's bothering me, what I'm worried a little bit about is, he's getting up in age a bit. And who do we have that can be another Pro Bowl, Super Bowl quarterback that we're bringing along?
Well, I can answer that. He's not on the roster yet.
Right.
I can tell you that. And it's Lenny, it's funny. It's one of the questions I asked Sean Payton at the owners' meetings. And I prefaced it by saying, I'm not trying to cause a stir. And he's like, no stirs, Larry. I don't need them. And then I asked the question, and he said, look, it's a fair question because Drew Brees is 35. He'll turn, 36 in January?
Yeah.
And so and his cap number's up. And after this year, he's got 2 years left in his deal, and his cap number jumps a ton.
Yes.
Jumps to $26 million and then $27 million, something like that in the final 2 years of his deal. But it's a fair question, and it's something that Sean Payton said, look, they are looking and judging the quarterback classes, especially now going forward, closely. He wants to make sure that they find this guy and don't pass on a guy who they feel like, wow, this guy might be a guy. So right now on the roster, they don't have anyone.
Right.
I mean, look, Luke McCown and Ryan Griffin, they're backups. They like Ryan Griffin. But it tells me right now they may not spend a draft pick on a guy. I know a lot of people are thinking, what about Mettenberger? What about the kid from Eastern Illinois?
Was it Galafaro?
Yeah, whatever his name is. and Aaron Murray, maybe someone like that from Georgia. Why not try to go get a pick? I feel like this wouldn't be the year to do it. I think maybe next year, though, you got to look really hard because you can't be stuck in what like Indy was.
Right.
Indy had no one in the tank. They go 1-15. They, pardon the pun, luck out and get Andrew Luck. But that rarely, if ever, happens. So I think maybe not this year's draft, but probably the next year. I think they got to look seriously at someone to come in and groom. And who knows? Maybe Ryan Griffin surprises us, but I don't. Look, I think he's solid, but he's a backup to me. Yeah. So we'll. I think they will look hard after this year to say, and if it's not there, they don't do it. But if it's the following year, but they are looking now for the heir apparent.
I would agree with Larry. I think they're a year out.
Yeah.
You know, when you start looking at you know, the time frame that you can hold on to a player, you're seeing it. You've seen it in New England a couple times where they've had the jettison quarterbacks who are backups to Tom Brady. Right. What's your take? Oh, is that guy on the roster now, or is it, as Larry said, maybe a year or so away before you start looking?
Well, I don't think that guy's on a roster now. That'd be almost asinine to say that, because neither one of those guys have shown anything. They're good players. You know, obviously they're good. They're in the NFL. Ryan Griffin has some skills, and I think that they want to groom him and see how far he can go. But with McCown, he's a backup, and let's face it, he's not a guy who you want starting 16 games for you. So I think at some point, maybe it's next year. Larry's closer to that situation than I am. Maybe it is next year that they go out and try to find that next guy, because Drew Brees is getting up there in age, and it won't be long before this thing comes crashing down, because it's shown with Peyton Manning and other quarterbacks, once that quarterback is out, and good teams, great teams, they turn to bad teams quickly without their quarterback.
Well, and you look at the situation, even and it seems like to me, even New England and Denver are maybe in worse scenarios because their quarterbacks are older. But they got to look the same way. And it's funny, you look at the Patriots, and they've had all the top quarterbacks come in and visit. People think, oh, it might be mind games, whatever. But they maybe wanted to gauge, all right, what are we looking for in qualities of a quarterback? It might not be this year, but look, they are all in the same boat. They need to look too. And I think the Saints are probably a year out, but Sean Payton knows. I mean, they know that they've got to do it, because one fell swoop and it could be over. It
could be a disaster.
Right.
No, I would agree. And again, Ryan Mallett has been shopped around. There's been a lot of talk that he may be moved. So I thought that was an interesting scenario, especially when you look, as you mentioned, you've got Peyton Manning, you got Tom Brady, both guys getting up in age. Same scenario that we're seeing with the Saints right now. All three teams have to be looking for an heir apparent very soon. We'll take our first break. Again, you're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll get back to the phone lines in a moment. We've got a great panel for you. Larry Holder and Nakia Hogan of New Orleans Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. My name is Eric Asher. I'm your host. Make sure you stay tuned to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natels Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE-TV at 6 o'clock with our live broadcast. A rebroadcast of this program can be seen each and every Friday night at 10 p.m. on WLAE-TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Our panel tonight, Nakia Hogan and Larry Holder of the New Orleans Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. Let's head to the phone lines, 866-3200. That's 504-866-3200. We're talking a lot of Saints. We'll get into the Pelicans as well. Jamie in Lydia, Louisiana, welcome to the program. Jamie, you with us?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Jamie, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Yeah, I would like to, if Sammy Watkins and Mike Evans still available, who you think they're gonna take?
Who would they take? Well, I would think they would take Sammy Watkins, but if they're there, they better run up with the card as fast as humanly possible, because those two receivers would be great.
Wow.
Sammy Watkins is going to be in top 5.
Yes.
But Mike Evans, to me, I think he could be top 10, top 15, and I feel like, to me, he's kind of a freak. He's like this tall guy, fast, great hands, physical specimen. There's a reason why those two guys are top 10, top 15. To me, I think Sammy Watkins could go as high as 2.
Yes.
But sorry, that's going to be wishful thinking, Jamie.
I
don't mean to burst your bubble, but that's going to be wishful thinking. Something drastic would have to happen, like mass arrests. And if that's the case, I don't know if you want to take him anyway if that's the case, but I think that's kind of wishful thinking. I'm sorry, Jamie. I apologize.
You got a better shot at Odell Beckham being there.
Yes,
than you do either of those guys. To Franklinton and James. James, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
How you doing, Eric? How you doing, guys? My question is, why wouldn't the Saints look at a strong-arm big quarterback like Zach Mettenberg from LSU to come in and be groomed as Drew Brees' replacement? I mean, this guy's played on the big stage. He's got the big arm. It looks like he's fully recovered from that knee injury. Why wouldn't they do that? And then I don't really like the fact that they don't go ahead and look at more LSU athletes anyway. So I'll go ahead and hang up and I'll listen to you guys.
Thank you, James.
Well, James, I could tell you they looked at every LSU player yesterday because the entire organization was there yesterday. So they look at LSU guys. I mean, the fact that they don't draft them, maybe guys they don't like as much, and maybe a guy they like is gone.
Yes.
Look, I think they'd love Odell Beckham, but he might not be there.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Mettenberger, would he be a good guy to come in and learn in this system? Absolutely. Here's the thing. You got to draft Mettenberger in the 2nd round, and I think that's the problem.
Yes.
You don't want to go get a guy who's going to sit if you're for 2 years, maybe longer.
Yes.
You don't know, and be mentored by Drew Brees. 2nd round pick and even a 3rd round pick is too valuable. Those guys can come in and play right away. You don't want to throw that pick away, even though in your mind you're thinking that's not a throwaway pick. He can be a great player. But he's not going to play now. I mean, it's a now league. And so I don't think they can afford to do that. 6th round? Maybe.
Yeah.
7th round? Undrafted rookie? Maybe. You can't, because Mettenberger could easily be a top of the 2nd round pick with the way he's recovering. And look, I mean, a lot of pundits, I forget, it might be Ron Jaworski says he's the number 2 quarterback.
Oh, yeah, no, you did.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you, Larry. You cannot go out and draft, when you're the Saints, you can't go out and draft a quarterback right now in the 1st, 2nd, maybe not even in the 3rd round, because you know when you draft that guy, he's going to sit on the bench for a few years.
Right.
So now, in essence, you're just wasting away that pick. And the Saints have too many other needs. We just talked about it. They need receivers. They need depth on the offensive line. They need some more pass rushers and maybe even help in the secondary. And you can get all those positions in the top 3. You don't want to use that pick to draft a quarterback, and Zach Mettenberger may become an all-pro quarterback. But you don't know that right now. Right. You don't want to waste that pick right now and have this guy sitting on the bench for 2, maybe 3 years before he's ready to play.
No, I agree with both you guys. To Uptown and Ron. Ron, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Ron.
My question is, do you think it's a possibility by Sean Payton being a gambler that they could possibly try to, if they really looking at Sammy Watkins, that they could package a deal, move up to probably get him?
You're going to have to package a heck of a lot to move from 27 to maybe 5,
yes,
4,
3,
2.
Yeah. Could take a Ricky Williams type deal.
Exactly. And do you really want to do that right now with again other needs that you have on this team?
Ron, I'm sorry again. I know I'm probably ruining everybody's day. Sammy Watkins is not going to be on the cards. Look, the Saints, if they're going to trade up, they might trade up 2 spots, 3 spots. The most drastic trade we've seen in the last couple of years, and there have been 2 of them, Saints traded back up into the 1st round at pick number 28 to get Mark Ingram. And then in 8, they traded up from 10 to 7 to go get Cedric Ellis, a need guy they traded up to get, and it didn't exactly pan out. So I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that.
Right. Even if Sammy Watkins, say something crazy happened pre-draft and he dropped to 15, I don't think the Saints have the ammunition to move up from 27 to 15. That's still a costly move.
It is.
And it's pricey, I should say. And I just don't see it happening. Sammy Watkins would need to do something crazy to fall to the Saints, and then I don't think the Saints would touch him. You know.
Considering Tim Lelito is going to be the center for the offseason workouts into OTAs, at least it looks that way right now, is he the odds-on favorite? Is the heir apparent right now at that center position?
Well, considering he's the only one, yeah. Here's the thing, though. They believe that Tim Lelito, you hear that potential word, and you know that just means you haven't done it yet. But Tim Lelito had 2 starts last year at guard. Was rough outing in his 1 start against Arizona, replacing Jari Evans. I think he gave up at least 2 sacks and was in trouble on a 3rd. And he came in, though, later on in the season. Week 11 is a Thursday night at Atlanta. Played much better. Still, again, his 2nd start out of a small school. But they feel like he has the potential to do this. Now, they're going to bring in competition. There's no doubt. I keep thinking they should give Jonathan Goodwin a call. He's a free agent.
Oh, yeah.
I know he would have no problem coming back. But maybe they want to go in a different direction. They're obviously looking in the draft because they're having centers come visit. And they know that's a spot they want to look for. But as of right now, it's Tim Lelito. But 4 months from now, it could be somebody else.
Right. They like that center to be that center guard combo guy, don't they?
Well, if you're going to be the backup guy, I think they want somebody, because on game day you're only carrying maybe 2 or 3 backup linemen, and you want to make sure you have a swing guy who can play that center and guard position. You know, they love that tackle eligible, so they keep that extra tackle up as well. But I don't know a whole lot about Tim Lelito. I wasn't around the team a whole lot as the season went on. But I just got the sense, though, just looking from the outside in, when this offseason happened and they didn't make a stronger effort to go after De La Puente, I thought maybe they didn't think that he played as well as some observers thought. And I think it was probably maybe they keep him for the right price, and Larry may know this much better than I, but maybe they keep him for the right price, or if not, they move on. And I think right now they're definitely in a position where they're moving on.
Yeah, well, again, De La Puente signs with Chicago, and signs as a backup. That's the thing that got me more than anything.
That should tell you that the whole cycle of free agency went around, and centers were being signed all over the league, and he wasn't one of them.
Yes.
That just shows you that the Saints weren't alone saying, look, we're going to go in a different direction. And De La Puente, right now, he's a backup in Chicago with Aaron Cromer.
Right. Nakia, the Pelicans 32-47, 4 games left, 6 losses in a row. There was a little bit of a stint there where I think people got really excited. They got some really good wins. But now, again, the injury bug, which has really affected this team all year long, continues to affect them. Eric Gordon is now shut down for the season with tendonitis in his knee. After an ankle injury, the AD starts getting back spasms. They announced today they've shut him down for the last 4 games of the season. Your thoughts, give me an overview of your thoughts on how this season has gone so far. I mean, again, a lot of people thought that this play, and myself included, I really thought this team was going to vie for the 7th, 8th spot in the West. But my gosh, when you lose as many starters, as many top players as they did, no team can rebound from that.
Right, and that's exactly what happened. When you look at this team, when they'll go into their 4th to last game on Friday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think 5 of their top 6 players will be out for the year. The only one left is Tyreke Evans. So, you would doubt your starting center to start the year, Jason Smith. You doubt your best shooter and leading scorer at that time, Ryan Anderson. You doubt your starting point guard, Drew Holiday. You doubt your starting shooting guard and highest paid player, Eric Gord. And you would doubt your prize, your superstar, in Anthony Davis, who took his game to another level, and he's an all-star. And I think we've heard Magic Johnson, we've heard Avery Johnson, we've heard all the who's who of basketball say in a year or two this guy will be top 3 player in the NBA. And after watching him play, I believe that they have a superstar in Anthony Davis. But I think what happened, injuries just caught up to this team. The core group that they build as their group that they were going to move forward with, we only saw them for 10 games. Those 10 games, they were 6-4. And I think they were 1st or 2nd in the league in scoring. So I think that gave them some optimism, some hope that things could get better in the future. But injuries just derailed this team. And I think along the way there were some issues with maybe, I don't want to say issues with coaching, but I think Monty Williams was up and down as a coach this year. And he was trying to learn all the players and personnel that they had. A young coach with a new team trying to figure it out. But I think when we get into next year, I think next year the expectations should be high again. And if they fail next year, I think wholesale changes will need to be made.
A lot of the fan base, look, I get it all the time. You get it all the time. Larry, when you were doing talk radio, sports talk radio, you were getting it all the time. Eric Gordon is the player that Pelican fans love to hate. I can't tell you how many people have tweeted me or emailed me this week saying, dump him. $30 million, who cares, dump him. Nakia and Larry, both of you guys chime in on this. There's no way they can dump him with that $30 million salary hanging out there. At the very least, he still is a productive player. He doesn't live up to his salary, but he's still a productive player. He's going to be hard-pressed to move him because, again, the injuries. I was really hoping he would have got through this season unscathed because he would have been more marketable. But I would go with you first, Nakia. He's not going anywhere at this point unless they can get a deal for him. They're not going to summarily just cut him.
You can't cut it. You can cut it in the NBA, but who cut somebody? The guy can still score. The guy, he averaged 15 points. And I tell you, on another team, he'd probably average 20. This is a guard-heavy team. They didn't allow him to do the type of things to be a James Harden type. He's not James Harden league. He doesn't have that explosiveness that guys like Harden have, and Westbrook and all those guys. But I think he's a good player. Injuries just continue to dog him, and a lot of people thought perhaps that maybe he was dogging it at the end of the year and just didn't want to play again. But it came out today that he's going to have arthroscopic knee surgery on his left knee. It's going to be the third straight season he's had surgery on his knee, you know, 2 on the right now, 1 on the left. So he's just a bad luck guy, you know, and he hadn't earned that $58 million contract by far.
Yeah, I would agree. Larry, it was a big topic on conversation on the Sports Hangover when you guys were doing it on 690. You got the question almost every day about Eric Gordon. Your thoughts?
I think our colleague Jimmy Smith wrote a column earlier this week saying the the Pelicans probably by now may regret matching that deal for Eric Gordon with the Suns. What could they have done with this money? What kind of pieces could they have brought in? You don't know that Anthony Davis, you got a good sense that Anthony Davis is going to be a great player, but he is going to be a superstar, and Eric Gordon is being paid like one and is not. And so what could you have done? I mean, now all we can do is talk about it because they did it. But they've got to live with the consequences. They knew he was an injury-plagued guy. They knew all the backstory. Obviously, he would have liked to have gone to Phoenix, but came back here because they matched.
Yes.
And you knew that, again, this isn't a surprise that he's got injury problems. It's knee issues throughout his career in L.A., now his career here. So you can't dump a guy, but at this point, you're in a bad situation, like you said. He's injured, and he might be tradable, but teams aren't going to want to come after the guy. So you kind of got to just ride with him next year. I don't see any other way around it.
The thing that makes Eric so unattractive is not his game. It's the contract.
It's all it is, the contract.
If Eric Gordon were making
$8-7 million, you could move
even
him.
10.
Yes.
Even 10 though, you keep him. Yeah, I think people want to get rid of Eric because one, he's always hurt, but when you factor in that he's making $15 million, he's not giving you anything right now. When you have a guy like Anthony Davis who's killing himself, he's out there just with a bad back, bad ankle, and he's saying he's going to get out there and play for his team because he's the leader of that team, and he wants to show the toughness and the will to win and get those other guys to follow him. He knows he can't quit on his teammates like some other guys may have.
Yes. Well, I mean, again, you look at the NBA, the way salaries are structured, you know, 2, maybe 3 players you could have gotten for that $15 million, depending on you know, mid-level guys that could come in, veteran guys that you could have signed. You know, it's hindsight now, but you know, it is. There were quite a few of us that felt like this was a bad move to be able to match it. The comments that were made, his feelings about Phoenix, the whole 9 yards at that point, but the organization was a little bit hamstrung. They didn't want to walk away from the Chris Paul deal without having the centerpiece of that deal on this team.
You're exactly right with that. And that's ultimately what it came down to. If they would have let Eric walk, they would have been left with Al-Farouq Aminu and the 10th pick that became
Austin
Rivers.
So, you know, that's not a hell of a trade to give up, you know, who was at that time the best point guard in the NBA.
Larry, I guess you would agree about the injuries. I mean, it's hard to overcome the type of injuries this team has had this year. I don't care what NBA team you are, you know, when you get decimated with the majority of the guys you brought in, your starters, it's tough to rebound from that.
I'll be honest with you. I don't even know if I've seen Drew Holiday play a game. Look, because you're excited about the start of the season. I don't watch every game, and I don't barely remember him playing, and you traded him for the 6th overall pick. And at the time, I think the move was a really good pick. You got an established point guard.
Got an all-star.
Right, exactly. So that, to me, on paper, was a great move when they did it. It still could be, but that's the thing. If I don't remember seeing him play, and I don't remember seeing Ryan Anderson play, I mean, those are two major contributors on the team. And so, talking to Nakia before the show, I had to ask how many games did they play together? 6, and he said, look, 10. And they were 6 and 4. You never know what could have happened, and that's the thing. Going forward, people are saying, get rid of Monty, get rid of Monty. You got to give him one more shot with this team, and if they have this team and it goes in the tank, they got to make moves. And I don't think the organization, knowing the way Tom Benson and Mickey Loomis look, they see a problem, they're going to fix it, and they will fix it if this team that they have plays the majority of the games together and can't get it done next year.
Monty gets another year. I mean, after Anthony Davis's recent comments, where he kind of tied himself to the hip of Monty Williams, I think it's a no-brainer. But you're there every day. Monty Williams gets another year?
I would definitely give him one. And I know that the front office likes Monty Williams, and Anthony Davis loves him. So Anthony Davis is willing to grow with his coach. He understands he has a young coach, and he's a young player. But I don't think the problem is Monty Williams. He is a young coach, and he struggled at times. But if you ask other coaches around the league, other people around the league, they think highly of Monty Williams. You know, he's on the Team USA. He's an assistant coach. You know, Coach K thinks the world of him. You know, you talk to Greg Popovich, people like that, Tom Thibodeau. They think Monty is a pretty good coach. So I think they just need to let him grow with his team. He's had 4 different teams in 4 years. It's not an excuse. It's just a fact. And I think he needs to have an opportunity to build his team and let it grow. And when you have a player like Anthony Davis and you have a core around him that's young and can grow together, I think this organization is going to change. Hopefully by next year. If it doesn't happen next year, then it may be time to look in a different direction.
I at least feel when they go into next year, it won't be a mystery of who's on the team. I think they'll know who's on the team.
They know who that core is.
Right, and I think it will be they'll have more of a sense of how this is going to pan out. I feel like last year it's trades, free agency, this, that. All
they got a mesh.
Right. Let's come together and we're gonna be a playoff team. I feel like they at least will have the know-all of, all right, let's figure out a role with Tyreke Evans. Okay, if his knees bother him and can't go, let's figure something else out. Maybe throw Tyreke in the starting lineup. We'll have Drew Holiday, Ryan Anderson, and Anthony Davis, obviously. So you at least can plan around these guys rather than, all right, who's on the free agent market? Who are we going to sign? All right, now we can figure it out. You can go in and at least have a game plan, at least in my eyes, and that's I think that will be beneficial.
I would agree. Nakia, what have we learned about this team this season that we can take into next year? Again, a lot of guys sat on the sidelines injured, and you got some guys still not knowing when Ryan Anderson's good, if he'll be back for the regular season start. You're there every day. What do you think we've learned about this team?
I think the one thing, the easiest, most obvious thing we've learned is that Anthony Davis is a top 10 player.
Yes.
All right. After that, I think we learned as the season went on that Tyreke Evans is a much better guy with the ball in his hands, starting and not coming off the bench. I think we also learned this team definitely it needs a defensive center, somebody that can help protect the rim and keep Anthony Davis from playing center. He's not ready to play center yet. His body hasn't developed yet. I think we've also learned that El-Farouq Aminu isn't the answer at the 3. And, his shot after working on it all season still hadn't developed. And they need a guy who on the wing who could play defense, rebound, and hit the 3 when he's left wide open. And we hadn't seen that this year.
Is there a good possibility you think Eric Gordon comes off the bench next year because, again, Tyreke has played so well as a starter?
I think it's a possibility, but it's going to be a hard sell perhaps to Eric to try and get him to buy into that. And I tell you what, Monty Williams isn't sold yet. He isn't sold yet on the idea of starting Tyreke Evans. He wants to see Tyreke Evans play with Ryan Anderson off the bench. That was his brainchild. He thought of that. He thought that Tyreke Evans could develop into a type of guy who can penetrate and get into the paint. And we've seen that he can. And he wanted to match him up with shooters like Anthony Morrow and Ryan Anderson. But because Ryan Anderson was hurt for pretty much the whole year, that duo never got a real chance to play with each other. We didn't get to see what Tyreke Evans could do really coming off the bench with guys who can shoot around him.
Does Dell Demps survive?
I like Dell Demps. I thought Dell Demps, and I've said this before, I thought Dell Demps did a better job than Monty Williams. But I think if one had to go, it probably would be Dell. I don't know really if it would come to that, but I get the sense just from people in the know that Monty Williams is a keeper for now. So if one had to go, and I'm playing that game, if I had to pick one to go, I would keep Dell first. I think Dell did a good job with putting this team together, but I don't know if the front office in the top, the top brass with this team, if they think the same way. If you put a gun to their head and ask them to tell them you can only keep one, I know that they think highly of Monty Williams.
Well, Monty's got the vote of confidence from Loomis. I haven't heard that vote of confidence from Loomis on Dell yet.
Right.
And I think that both guys, and I know this is not a popular feeling among the fan base, I think both guys, because what they've had to go through to this point, deserve at least one more year. And then if it doesn't work, maybe you blow up the coaching staff in the front office and you go in a different direction.
Could be time.
No doubt. Last question. If they what's the biggest need going forward? Is it the 3 and the 5 when you look in this offseason?
I would take the 5 every day. They need somebody who can definitely defend the rim. Too often guys get in the paint and it's such an easy finish. I see too many dunks given up by this team, and no rebound and no consistency. We see Jeff Whitty. He's a second-round pick, a guy who third-team All-American in college, and he's had his moments, 17 points just the last night. But I think they need somebody there who can be there time in and time again, night in and night out. Greg Steensma isn't the guy. I think we've learned that. And Alexis Ajinça, he's had his moments of doing some good things, but we've seen him do some bad things as well. So I think if they can find a center, they'd be a much better team. If not, they're not look at a 3. But this team needs to get bigger and stronger in the middle.
I don't think Anthony Davis should ever play center. I don't think he's ever going to become like the Incredible Hulk.
Right.
That's his body type. I think I'm with Nakia. Get a 5 and let him be who he is. He doesn't need to be in the middle, bruising it up. Let him be a shot blocker who could be creative, and he never needs to play center. Right. I don't think he ever needs to be a true 5 ever.
Well, guys, that's it. We appreciate you coming down. Larry Holder of NOLA.com covers the Saints for NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Nikhil Hogan of NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. He covers the Pelicans for that great publication as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, there's a rebroadcast of this show each and every Friday night at 10 o'clock on WLAE-TV and Pelican Sports Television. Also, you can catch me on the radio weekdays 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on 990 a.m. WGSO. You can also check out the podcast of my radio show at ericasher.com. And if you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, you can check those out at ericasher.com as well. You can also follow me at Twitter at Eric_Asher. Special thanks to our guests, Larry Holder and Nikhil Hogan. Also to the WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my producer-director, William Hill. I'm Eric Asher. I'm your host of Inside New Orleans. I surely hope that you'll join us next Thursday night right here on WLAE-TV at 6 p.m. Until then, New Orleans, have a great evening, and we'll check you out next week on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natels Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.